In today's video, we're going to be talking about AEW New Japan Forbidden Door. Also, we're going to talk about some big plans for AEW later this year. And then also, a former UFC fighter wants to go to AEW and WWE. I'm going to explain to you guys why this is an absolute terrible decision for either company to sign him. And then, of course, we got to talk about some Jay Lethal and Ric Flair drama. If you guys want more videos like this, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Make it easy for yourself. You get updates every single day. With that being said, let's start off with Jay White. If you guys are unfamiliar with what is happening here, Tony Khan has revealed on social media that here on Dynamite, June 22nd, 2022, which is today. So if you're watching this video today, make sure you watch Dynamite because AEW is going to reveal new matchups for the Forbidden Door pay-per-view. And then also we are going to know, finally, who Switchblade is versing at the pay-per-view. Now, my original guess was that it was going to be a multi-man match. You know, Jay White, somebody else from New Japan, and Adam Cole and Hangman Page, Fatal 4-Way. That was kind of like my original guess. But I have a very strange feeling that Kenny Omega is ready for return. And maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe they're planning a huge surprise here. I know Dave Meltzer at one point said things were a little bit more delayed or whatnot. But with Kenny Omega at this stage of the game, I don't know. I have a weird thing. Maybe it's wishful thinking. Maybe I just really, really want Kenny Omega versus Switchblade. But nonetheless, we're going to find out his opponent. And then Tony Khan also did reveal on social media that for Forbidden Door matches, we're going to get more match announcements tonight. So if you guys are interested in Forbidden Door, this is a perfect time for you guys to tune in to AEW. Now, with that being said, I want to turn our attention to Greg Hardy in the UFC. He was a bust. Dana White tried propping him up. Dana White tried very, very hard to push this guy to the top. And unfortunately, he was just not successful. And I honestly have to say, when it comes to Greg Hardy, there was a lot of potential there, but he just wasn't that good. And that's okay. You don't have to be the best UFC fighter. We know his situation. He came from the NFL, went to the UFC. But the problem is Greg Hardy has a very troubled past. And I think, you know, in situations like this, when a guy publicly says somebody from AEW or WWE should hit him up, I don't know if it's the best idea. Now, with that being said, I also don't think it's a good idea because Greg Hardy wasn't a great UFC fighter. Truth be told, I think, look, he had some explosiveness and some knockout power, and I will never take that away from the dude. But at the same time, Greg Hardy was not a winner. Greg Hardy had too many mistakes in the cage. Now he's going to bare knuckle fighting, and then now he's publicly asking for somebody in AEW or WWE to hit him up. My personal opinion is this. If you're that good, they'll recruit you, right? This is why WWE has the NIL program. This is why they're scouting people. This is why AEW scouts independent wrestlers, not UFC fighters. The only exception to that is Paige Van Zandt, but obviously there's ties to American Top Team there. Now, with that being said, Greg Hardy had recently mentioned that he's kept his eye on professional wrestling. He says, somebody hit me up, AEW or WWE, hit me up, I'm down. I'll get in the gym right now. I'll show up with the Monday Night Muscles and jump off the side of the rope on anybody. I'll come out with one of those Rey Mysterio type masks. I'm going to grab a design artist too. You have to have showmanship or like Goldust, something crazy. It has to be entertainment level stuff. You can't just come out with the tights and have a six-pack unless you're Brock Lesnar or The Rock. Strange that he says that because The Rock was not really a great wrestler. I mean, he was good, but The Rock was a far better entertainer than anything else. I'm an old school fan. I would love to get in there. I'm waiting for the call. If you know somebody that is watching this right now, hit me up and let's get to work. So shout out to obviously Chris Van Vliet for the interview. Now, with that being said, I want to make this very clear. Greg Hardy, he did not work out in the UFC. That doesn't mean he won't work out in pro wrestling. But at the same time, too, if you're AEW, this is not the route that you want to go. If you're WWE, this is not the route that you want to go. You want to go for the young talent. You want to go for people that have somewhat a little bit of experience. And if you're going to sign somebody that was a professional fighter, you want to sign somebody who was successful as a professional fighter. That is how I view this, okay? UFC having Tyrone Woodley and you know, Watching Tyrone Woodley show up in the ring and do absolutely nothing is a waste of time. But watching AEW put in Paige Van Zandt and allowing her to have a career in wrestling makes sense. She was at least somewhat successful in professional fighting. And while I may not be the biggest Paige Van Zandt fan, she's actually starting to understand wrestling a little bit better. Same thing with Ronda Rousey. I'm not saying you have to like them on a personal level, but on a professional level, they were successful at one point in their craft. Those are the types of people you could bring in if they're famous athletes. You don't want to bring up the guys that were pushed to the top very quickly, because obviously it was very unrealistic and unattainable for Greg Hardy to be successful in the UFC. But Dana White kept giving him chances, and he failed. And you know what? It's okay to fail. I never have an issue with somebody trying something new and failing. CM Punk went to the UFC and completely flopped. But with that being said, if you're going to make these big signings, because these UFC people, would they rather get beat up in the cage, bare knuckle fighting? Would they rather get beat up in the cage, or would they rather wrestle and make a shit ton of money? I think the answer is obvious. In the UFC, you're not paid very well. In bare knuckle fighting, you're not very paid. Like, at least in pro wrestling, you get a shit ton of money. The only thing I agree here is that Greg Hardy understands that you have to have entertainment, and that's the stuff that matters. With that being said, let's move on. Jay Lethal and Ric Flair apparently have some beef right now, which is so funny because Jay Lethal has been training Ric Flair. Jay Lethal was scheduled to appear as the guest on Ric Flair's To Be the Man podcast this week, but Lethal no-showed, according to Conrad Thompson. Ric Flair elaborated on why, and he said that Jay Lethal wanted to be on the card for his last match in Nashville, and he's got an attitude about it because there was no room for him on the show. Look, as far as this goes, when it comes to Jay Lethal, the dude's been training Ric Flair. Jay Lethal is barely getting used on AEW. He just wants to be a part of something special. He's been there for Ric Flair when I think a lot of people in the world right now would not necessarily be there for Ric Flair. I don't necessarily agree with no showing a podcast or whatever it may be. But obviously there are some issues there, and hopefully it gets resolved. As you guys know, I am not a big believer in this Ric Flair last match stuff. I think it's a huge money grab, and I just don't personally agree with it. I know a lot of people do. They say, Ango, you shouldn't care about Ric Flair's health. I just don't give a shit about watching Ric Flair wrestle in 2022. I mean, what do I know? I like to see young people jump into the ring and like become a star, and I like to see the progression of these people. I like watching Darby Allin literally evolve and then go to AEW and have high marquee matches. That's the kind of wrestling I like. I like watching NXT and seeing somebody I've never heard of before actually climb the ranks. Time is up with Ric Flair. I'm not for it. That's it. His last match, how many last matches does this guy need? At the end of the day, I'm not for it. Jay Lethal being on the card, don't know why it's not happening or whatever it may be, but nonetheless, Jay Lethal and Ric Flair got some issues. All right, guys, Tony Khan has recently revealed, which this is so exciting, AEW Canada. Yeah, so Tony Khan has plans for Canada, and the best part is they are looking at quite a few cities to tour in Canada. Obviously, the reason why this is a big deal is because AEW has been doing pretty damn well in Canada when it comes to overall viewership, especially with their TV deal with TSN. But for those who don't know, with AEW, obviously, them not going to Canada previously is a very big deal considering a lot of their talent are from Canada. It's also a big deal for AEW to build a global presence, something that they've already started doing in the UK, thanks to their deal with Fight TV. And then, of course, honestly, just in general, outside of the UK too, when you look at, the ability to have AEW Plus, I think it's like $5 a month or something with Fight TV. So AEW is expanding its range. Obviously, going to Canada is a big deal. There are plans for AEW to go to Canada. They'll make some announcements soon. But the reason why this is obviously big is because now they have another market to try and take over. WWE isn't always the most successful in Canada, but with AEW, it's showing some promise. So this is a big deal. Obviously, AEW going to Canada is a good thing for me because depending on where they go, for example, Toronto, Canada is not too far from Detroit, Michigan. So if I wanted to make the drive out there, I technically can. So just really cool stuff. We'll see what happens. I don't know if this means they'll do house shows and live events. I imagine that when AEW does go out there, they might do like one little house show or maybe like a Battle of the Belts type of thing, but we'll see what happens. Let me know what you guys think. Obviously, big things in the works for AEW. Can't argue this one. I think it's a good idea. They should be expanding, and that's the best way to do it. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below.